Exactly 50 years ago, right now, this was just nothing. This was just a gravel turnout. But that night, it became, an infamous crime scene. This is a crime scene that people come here from all around the world to see this gravel turnout. There have been people here from Japan, there have been people come here from Europe to see this patch of gravel. And it's because of what happened 50 years ago. The Zodiac wasn't called that yet, but he found some victims right here parked in a car late at night and killed both of them and drove away, and now we're still trying to figure out who he is.
San Francisco was terrorized in the late 1960s and the early 1970s by a man who called himself the Zodiac Killer. He claimed 37 murders. The Zodiac Killer case has been unsolved for over 50 years. And many people think they know the case, but they couldn't be further from the truth. I've dedicated the last 20 years of my life to solving this case, and no, I'm not a cop. I'm a citizen investigator. I'm Tom Voigt. I'm a web designer by day, but in my free time, I run ZodiacKiller.com, a website devoted to solving the Zodiac Killer mystery. I am obsessed with this case. It's America's most infamous cold case.
A typical investigator wants to know, what did the suspect look like at the relevant time? Did he match any of the descriptions of the killer? What's his background? What's his education? To everyone involved, except for people reading true crime books, Zodiac was unsolvable, so it's best to just not waste time on it. And of course, amateur detectives, don't have to punch the clock and so forth.
So I met Tom in 2004, first via email and through his message board and website, and had always been obsessed with the case myself because I read the book and lived very close to one of the crime scenes. And used to fish at Lake Berryessa when I was a little kid with my grandpa. He was never caught, and he, the codes and the fact that he killed people in isolated spots and places I had been personally before I realized that that's where they happened. And that just seemed really, really scary, like he could still be out there.
Some years trying to get as much attention as possible to this case so it would get solved. It's almost a home away from home, these crime scenes, because we find ourselves back at them even when we weren't going to. I've gotten threats since I launched my Zodiac website. All sorts of delusional people, all sorts of kooks kind of flock to the site. One in particular is threatening to kill people who are here at this crime scene. According to him, he's going to kill people that show up here on the 50th anniversary, which is today. I'm standing where it used to be a crime scene. There was a young teenage couple named David and Betty, and they were on their first official date, even though they'd been seeing each other in secret. He killed the male, shot him in the head as David was exiting the vehicle. Betty, when she heard the gunshot or saw it, she started running that way, and Zodiac shot her 5 times in the back. And the male victim was found next to it with the door open, and the female victim was found right over here. I thought maybe it would be a good idea to, instead of this place being known for something that's really horrible, I thought it might be a good idea to
What are you doing? What are you doing?
So now it'll be known as something positive and good. What do you think? Would you marry me?
Yes.
Okay.
God, what are you doing?
She said yes. Did you get that? She said, yeah, I know. Maybe he's still alive, but I don't care if he's dead or not. I don't care if he gets prosecuted. I just want to know who he was, and then the case is solved and we can move on. A group of people here on the 50th anniversary are gathered out here to remember the victims and to share information. Hopefully one day someone will share the right information and the Zodiac will be brought to justice. If you're parked here, you're vulnerable for sure, and the victims were parked here and obviously were vulnerable. That was exactly now 50 years ago to the minute. I first came out here at the 30th anniversary, 20 years ago tonight, and nothing's changed. This area is still exactly the same. I mean, the trees, nothing's different. And it was this way 50 years ago. The area is just, it's like going back in time. You know, the other crime scenes have changed, but this one hasn't. So I think that's why people come here, is because it's so much like it was at the time. The spot had its own name. It was called Gate 13. I guess it was named after this gate over here. And so people who wanted to head here for whatever reason, they knew where to find it by name. And mostly teenagers used it. And the other side of the gate, if you go down the road there, it's a shooting range, a police shooting range. I don't know if the Zodiac knew that, but if he did, then it would be a good way to taunt the police, is to take, you know, 2 victims right here outside the shooting range by gun.
Okay. We all just want to say their names quickly. David Faraday.
David Faraday.
And Betty Lou Jensen.
Betty Lou Jensen.
And, you know, rest in peace, and we're still thinking of you. And there's a lot of people who aren't here who are also thinking of us. So. Question of, you know, who did it? Are they still here? Are they still among us? And I mean, my own personal feeling is that they are.
Yeah, my name is Wolfgang Keil. I'm an immigrant from Germany. I immigrated into the Bay Area about 20 years ago, at which point I became aware of the Zodiac Killer Case. The case, initially, I was a little bit curious about it. You look a little bit deeper, it becomes a very, very strange case. And, the deeper you look into this case, the more curious it becomes. One of the aspects of the Zodiac case is the fact that the killer has started to communicate with the media, and as part of his communication with the media and the police, law enforcement, he's been sending various ciphers. And that is, of course, something that's very intriguing. Very few killers have, or criminal and people have done this. And you look at the ciphers and you really want to know what's in them. That's, the first cipher was cracked relatively fast, and every other cipher after that has never been cracked. So far, no attempts have been successful. There are several attempts out there by other people, but they are only very partial. And if you look very close, you'll find the fact that those are not real, true, valid solutions. Well, this is the 50th anniversary of the case, and that started the murder spree that happened thereafter. And the intriguing fact about that is that nobody really until today understands really what happened back then. This was a murder. It was a couple was shot, another couple got shot, but the murders that followed that don't follow the same pattern anymore. So one might say, okay, this killer has had a motive. He killed couples. But then he goes to San Francisco, kills a cab driver. So that doesn't fit anymore. And then he starts communicating with the police and with law enforcement, with the media. And you start wondering, what is his motive? Nobody so far has understood what this guy was after. And that's where the case becomes very interesting, because you can't put it to rest. Normally, for a killing, you understand, okay, he had this one motive. But for this guy, it is different. Every angle you look at this case from turns out to be, you have a theory here, but it then contradicts another thing that he did then later. And I think that is the reason why many people can't put this case to rest. We haven't caught the guy, and we never understood what he was up to.
I'm trying to get the Zodiac caught. I want him caught, and I believe that he's still alive. I do not believe that he died. I don't believe it was Arthur Lee Allen. The man that I got away from was smaller. He was more like 5'9", stocky, curly brown hair, glasses, talks in a monotone voice. My name is Sandy Betts, and I'm one of the people that posts on ZodiacKiller.com. I've been with Tom for like 20 years, posting on his site, and I wanted to do something that hasn't been done before, and this is such a big deal, the 50th anniversary. I was a cocktail waitress in Vallejo in the late 60s. I worked several of the clubs here, and one night I left one club to go to another to pick up a paycheck that they owed me. and it was getting close to 2 o'clock when I got there. And I saw some guys that I knew from Richmond, and they asked me to sit down and have a drink with them. Well, I sat down, talked to them for about maybe 10 minutes, picked up my check, and they, thank goodness, walked me out to my car. Well, when I went out to the car, I turned the key, and all of a sudden, nothing. I said to the boys, I said, would you guys mind looking underneath my hood to see if my coil wire is okay? And they looked, they said, what are you, psychic? Your coil wire is gone. So they took one out of somebody else's car that was parked there, put it in my car, and I start driving home, and I get the feeling I'm being followed. And I was. I was a waitress down in Oakland, and he walked up behind me, and he scared me, and I screamed, and he looked at me and he goes, I am very sorry if I frightened you. And I mean, I knew I was standing toe-to-toe with the Zodiac Killer. I'm very, very sure of it.
One of the most, probably, I would say, scrutinized victim of the Zodiac was a girl named Darlene Ferrin. Actually, she was 22 years old or so. And it's been thought for ever since she was killed 50 years ago that she might have known the Zodiac. So her entire personal life was just kind of, well, for 5 decades, it's been scrutinized and turned upside down. And one of the Zodiac suspects that apparently did know Darlene was named Richard Gaikowski. And I learned about him shortly after I launched ZodiacKiller.com in 1998. I was approached by one of Darlene's sisters, and she had information about Gaikowski that she wanted to share with me, and I didn't find him compelling at all. He was way down on my list. Pam, Darlene's sister, had a really grainy photograph that, in my opinion, didn't look that much like the Zodiac Killer, and she had a lot of information that she had been given by an informant named Blaine, who used to know Richard back in the 1960s, and the information was all over the map, and I just couldn't find anything that really compelled me.
I'm David Morris, and I started working with Tom on the website after being a user and a reader for quite some time. Around 2007, Blaine contacted me because he had read my posts and seen me on the site. And he said he had a great suspect. And I called up Tom and asked him, what do you think about Richard Gaikowski? And he said, oh, that's from Purple Blaine. He's come and gone. It's nothing important. And I said, well, there's some things in there that are getting kind of lost in the shuffle, but I said, I think it's pretty interesting. So Blaine had amassed over years recordings that he had made of Gaikowski's voice, newspaper clippings, photographs. Some of the stuff was intriguing. Some of the stuff was actually, potentially more than just passing fancy. So the more that we dug into it, the more interesting it seemed. Everything sort of built on itself. The further that we looked into his passports and whatnot, and into his life and his job, it all sort of came piece by piece together. The fact that Gaikowski worked at a newspaper, a counterculture newspaper, was something that was very intriguing, because Zodiac had never been associated with actually working in the press. And as it continued, we kept finding other overlapping things. The Good Times newspaper where he worked had quotes and content and pictures and things that seemed to be referencing Zodiac letters and Zodiac, activity and contact.
All of a sudden, some really interesting information came to light, and it didn't take long, and Richard became my top priority. So Pam was, by that point, really impressed with Blaine's information, and she eventually, knocked on Richard's door and was brought in. She asked for handwriting samples from Richard that she could compare to the Zodiac's handwriting. And the handwriting samples were very interesting. Richard was a really intelligent guy, but he would misspell words, really easy words. He would misspell, just like the Zodiac. The Zodiac misspelled easy words. So the similarities were there, and Pam left, that encounter, believing that Richard could be the Zodiac. And so kind of her support helped Blaine get taken seriously by the Department of Justice in California. They wanted Richard's handwriting samples to compare to the Zodiac's handwriting. And Blaine turned over everything he had. And the Department of Justice concluded that Richard Gaikowski could have been the Zodiac based on handwriting. So they asked Blaine to get more handwriting samples, and Blaine had given them all, that he could. And by that time, Richard knew he was under investigation. So he was not handwriting anything anymore. And that's where it pretty much ended. So based on handwriting, Gaikowski definitely could have been the Zodiac killer. And there aren't that many people that fall into that category. Gaikowski eventually was talked to the FBI. They knocked on his door and said, somebody thinks you're the Zodiac killer. Richard claimed that he had a passport that would prove that he was out of the country during all the Zodiac stuff, and but that he could not find the passport. Well, that turned out to be a lie. He was not out of the country during the Zodiac crimes. Eventually, his passport records were retrieved, and he was definitely not in, he was here. And so that was interesting. At the time, the FBI had no way to prove whether he was telling the truth or not. But in retrospect, now it's easy to get any record you want on the internet. You can find whatever you want. It takes a matter of hours at the most. You can get somebody's entire history. Early in the morning of July 5th, 1969, after shooting a young couple, the Zodiac went to a payphone in Vallejo, California, and called the police to report his crime. And he spoke to a police dispatcher named Nancy Slover, who became one of my really good friends and great sources of information. And so over the years, I would play Nancy audio of various Zodiac suspects to see if maybe she might recognize their voice as being the person she talked to on the phone early that morning. And when I played her Richard Gaikowski's voice, she had a violent physical reaction and ended up having to go into therapy because it brought back just all these memories that she hadn't experienced for so long. And in fact,
Hi everybody, it's Nancy again. I'm back. I listened to the voice of Richard. I felt shocked and deja vu. In my opinion, he was the same person who I listened to in July of 1969, or when.
Well, after all this time, I still feel like he is the best suspect that has come and gone. It's difficult to plant your flag and say, oh, this is it and this is unchanging, because we're amateur investigators. We have to look at what information we have. Does the FBI have a whole bunch of information that we're not aware of and that would turn the tide? We don't know. But as we find things and other people find things, and there's a lot of people contributing and working and investigating on the sites online, he still intrigues me. He's still, the fact that he's so involved with writing and newspapers, and that he uses newspaper slang, don't bury me in the back pages, and things like that, which you wouldn't normally get in the vocabulary of somebody that doesn't have anything to do with newspapers or journalism.
Like 3 miles or so as the crow flies in this direction was the next event that eventually all became connected. And that was just after midnight on July 5th was the subsequent attack to this one. And it was a similar situation, a young couple in a car, guy uses a gun and gets away with it. But he stepped it up, he made a phone call and reported his own crime. So that didn't happen here, but it happened in the next one. And then the escalation continued and the risk-taking continued. And
well, I know that Darlene Farron was killed, and the man she was with was wounded pretty badly, I suppose. I think he was shot many times. My name is Thomas Atkinson. I went to high school with Darlene Farron, the lady that was killed here 50 years ago. She seemed like a very outgoing person, very friendly person. That's what I remembered about her. I'm just curious about things, you know. It's just something like this, this big, it happens here this long time ago, and yet there's no conclusion to the case, you know. This case and the other cases involved with it. So I knew Darlene from that class I had with her, and that was it. And you always just sort of wonder, you know, like, you know, things like an unsolved murder, you know, it'd be interesting to see it solved. I know, like, I was living in Seattle area when the Green River killings were solved, and they thought that would never be solved up there. They'd totally given up on that, and out of the blue they solved it. So maybe this case here, maybe it's possible too at this late date. So
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I'm very interested, you know, to see what it would be, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe it's somebody I knew. I don't know. I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
My name is Frank Arthur Sunan. I came down from Nevada. I live in Nevada. I came down, and I didn't want my brother to. He was going to come out here. There was going to be something coming out here, right? I didn't want him to be there alone. So I came down here pretty much for his support, and we went to the grave and saw Darlene's, you know, and put flowers on her little tomb, you know. And I'm here for support. Love my sister with all my heart. Really, really love her, and I miss her. I miss her. Even it's been 50 years, I still miss her. To this day, I think about her every day.
Where were you when it happened?
Okay, where I was at home. Darlene came by around 10:15 with a box of fireworks, and our mama got us out of bed. She got us out of bed and said, "Hey, your sister's here. She wants to do some fireworks with you. So come on." And we just did a whole bunch of fireworks prior to that. So I said, okay. It was great. We ran out of bed, me and my sisters, and we ran out of bed, and we're happy as can be, you know. And we did some fireworks until about 10:30 that night. Okay, somewhere around there, you know. My sister gave me a hug and a kiss. She said, "Be good, and do your homework, and I'll see you tomorrow." I says, "I love you, Darlene." She goes, "I love you too." And then that's it. And then I left. I went to bed, and she left. That was the last time I saw her.
I'm a brother. I know. My deepest condolences. So what can we do to get this thing solved? What do you know, so many people feel like that with Darlene, that because she may have recognized, you know, through what Mike Majot had said, that maybe she did recognize who it was. Is there any way that
I believe personally, I believe that she did know the killer. I personally believe, I don't know if my brother actually agrees with me, but I think she really did know the killer. I don't think it was just a random killing out there.
Sure it
me
is.
Personally.
It was a serial killer, Frank.
Yep.
Serial killers just pick on anybody they can get opportunity to. I know serial killers. I've talked to a lot of serial killers.
Yeah.
I've been around a lot of them. Okay, I know you hear side strangler. Okay, he lived right next door to me. He had talked about how he did women, how he suffocated them and do this and do that with them, you know? So I met a whole bunch of serial killers in my life. And all of them said they weren't going to stop until they got caught or something happened to them. They would never stop. Because I talked to Angelo Bruno all the time. He was saying, I wouldn't stop until I got caught. And no one teaches us stopping. That's what serial killers are, you know? I've been with serial killers. I've been right next door to them and shit, so I know what they are. I know how they talk. I know what they're thinking. Everything. I've talked to them for years in prison.
The thing about it is if you think you got something going on, run with it, and we'll back you 100%.
Yeah.
Because we would love to have this solved. Now you don't think it was that Lee, Arthur, Allen, and
Krosky, and all these motherfuckers.
You don't
They all
think
been
it's-
clear.
You
They all been
don't
clear.
think it's any of them. You
Yeah.
feel like it's completely unsolved and that it could be.
It'll never be solved, man.
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably
not. Now, Galkowski's dead.
Yes, he's not the list.
Galkowski's dead. He could have been.
We went to visit him too.
You did?
Yeah. Me, two of my sisters, and my sister, and my wife.
I was against it. I was against it because I was working the swing shift that night, and I said, okay, I'm trying to talk. Just let's plan our attack. Don't rush into anything, right? Just plan our attack. And as soon as I went to work, family went down and jammed up Galkowski in Daly City or South San Francisco.
Yeah, South San Francisco.
What was it like?
Well, my wife, she got very. My wife's like, she's a hippie too, so she understands all this free spirit shit and spirits and all that. She felt very unpleasant. She felt evil in the house. We knocked on the door. Me and my wife was down there drinking sake, because right by the Japanese district. She was down there drinking sake. Finally, he came home to the back way. And my sister, his sister, was sitting in front of his house waiting for him to come in. He never came to the back way. Then she seen the lights on, and she came and got us, and we all went to the door, knocked on the door, and he goes, "I've been expecting you."
No, we found out about Galkowski. He was doing snuff movies. He was making snuff movies. He was making.
But you guys don't think he was involved?
No, he wasn't involved.
You don't think so? I'm not 100%.
No.
No.
The handwriting in the match, and in the match, we went through the whole fucking living room of his house.
Mm-hmm.
There were no cryptids, no cutouts, no nothing, no scissors, anything had to cut out what he did.
How did he react to you guys? Like, what was his? Did you ask him pointed questions?
I did. Everybody, all my sisters left. I was the last one in his apartment.
Yeah.
I'm turning around. I said, "Man, I'll be back. He's Zodiac. I'll be back." Better hope he's Zodiac, man. And I left, and next thing I knew, I heard he was dead. But he never.
You think so?
He never said anything that
started incriminating. No. He didn't say he knew Darlene. It wasn't Blair or none of that shit. So the police cleared him. But you gotta understand. And the police, 1969, in a town there, and 54,000 people in it. Small, twice as small as Benicia now.
Wow.
And for 54,000 people. So the police should be able to find. He's going on Vallejo killing people. 54,000 people in Vallejo. He's writing in the newspaper. He's sitting in Southern Cisco newspapers. He's killing a person inside the cab driver, Paul Stein. He's killed him. Went to Lake Pierce and killed him. Blue Springs, Lake Herman Road. So he wanted credit for all that. Of course, he didn't seem like a person that would want to do that. He seemed like a person that would do that. Mm-hmm. Plus, he was cleared.
I asked Ken Noilo from the Napa show.
Yeah.
Dr. Ken Noilo says, I've already looked into Galkowski, and he says he's cleared.
What could people do more to help this case get solved?
They're doing all they can now.
Yeah.
Honestly, what they're doing is fabulous.
Good.
To keep my sister's murder, Zodiac alive, people's minds, people's hearts.
What you're doing right there, continue doing it.
Okay.
That's all we can ask.
Don't stop.
100%.
That's all we can ask.
Well, God bless you guys.
Never did go by. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Just never did go by.
Where is it now? It's over here? I've been here. I was here 15 years ago. So Cecilia Shepard was actually from Southern California, but she's buried here in the Bay Area in Napa County. And the reason is because the day before she drove up here, the day before she was killed or attacked that led to her death, she was attacked on September 27th and she died on the 29th. And the day before she drove up here, she was with a friend to retrieve some belongings, and she actually kind of had a premonition, according to her sister. Her sister told me that Cecilia mentioned before driving away that when she ever died, she wanted to be buried at the cemetery in St. Helena, because that was close to where she graduated college, and she loved that little town, St. Helena, and she thought that cemetery was beautiful. And then before she drove away, she ran back and hugged her mom a second time. And I guess her mom said she'd never done that before. So they were kind of convinced that she kind of knew that something bad was going to happen to her. But that's why she's buried in St. Helena and not Southern California, where she was from. We are at the Lake Berryessa crime scene on the exact 50th anniversary from when somebody attacked 2 young people that were picnicking out here. And the guy could still be alive, so I don't want to alarm anybody, but keep an eye out. It happened like right around here too. They were on the lake shore, and a man in a costume and a foot-long knife started stabbing him. So right around where, yeah, right in here. The oak trees were really prominent, and they were used as shade by the victims. And then one of the oak trees, that's where the Zodiac hid behind to put his costume on. I don't know if that's part of a stump, part of one of the 3 oak trees that were out here. The Lake Berryessa attack was about this time of evening, almost exactly. Cecilia and Brian had known each other for years. They were on again, off again, boyfriend, girlfriend, and things were heating up again when Cecilia came up the day before she was attacked. She came up from Southern California to retrieve some belongings that she had gone to college here nearby. And she was supposed to leave the next day to go back to Southern California for good, but of course she was attacked and died 2 days later. So they might be married now if that hadn't happened. But yeah, so it's an unsolved case, and it's one of the, thought to be, until recently, the only knife attack that Zodiac ever did. He was always a gun guy, but for this one he used a knife. So it was basically the Mr. Potato Head concept. So nobody actually drew, yeah, nobody drew that guy. That was Mr. Potato Head, based on what the sunbathers saw.
I grew up in the area. This was my boogeyman, the thing that happened that time. It's an unsolved case here that is a serial killer type before there were serial killers was coined. It's just a case that's local, it's unsolved, and has some interesting case factors that I would like to see solved.
I don't know why, but 25 years ago, it was almost as if I woke up and I had a point to existing. You know, I haven't been able to stop since then. My mom used to think she was concerned when I first, she didn't really know anything about Zodiac. And so when I took this interest, she was kind of concerned, didn't understand it. And now, after 20-some years, if she meets somebody who doesn't know who the Zodiac is, she thinks they're weird. A lot of the amateur detectives have contributed information that really has advanced the case, not to a conclusion, but that's always possibly around the corner. There are people that think that the Zodiac was Clint Eastwood. I'm not kidding. There are people who think the Zodiac was D.B. Cooper, the famous skyjacker. There are people that think Zodiac, Ted Cruz, the politician. There are a lot of weird people, And I started a website, so now they know who to email, and they know where to go to show up to meet, other people. Most of these people are really cool, but there are some nut cases. One of them got my event canceled late last year, a 50th anniversary gathering. Had to cancel it because a nutcase was going to show up with and kill people. People that are delusional, they think they know who the Zodiac is, but no one will believe them because we're all, in on a conspiracy or something like that, and they can get really crazy. Well, I have some probably not unexpected news. So the same lunatic that had me forced to cancel the 50th gathering last December is back apparently out of the booby hatch, and I didn't know he has a account at my discussion forum, and he's announced just within the last 10 minutes some new threats for here tonight. He's a obviously long-term mental patient. He thinks his father is a Zodiac, and he thinks that all of us are in a pedophile ring and helping keep the Zodiac free from being apprehended. And he made some threats last December. Fortunately, they caught him and put him in a facility, but he's out, and I guess he's going to target us here. Posted stuff at the message board, and he's also sent me private messages, and I've also been alerted from other people at the message board who saw what he was posting and have independently contacted me. So I don't know if he's planning on being here at the exact time of the crime 50 years ago, or if he's going to show up any minute, but I have to at least tell people so they can leave if they want, because I mean, the last anniversaries have had protection. We've had protection. Even at Lake Berryessa, we had ranger there. We had cops at Lake Herman Road. There were cops at Blue Rock Springs, but nobody from SFPD is going to be here.
What time is it now? What time is the
9:28 p.m. So, I mean, this is getting pretty close to the crime scene time. Good to see you again. So, I've got some kind of bad news. Well, we had a plan for tonight, but do you remember last Christmas? He's out again. So my phone was just blowing up and he could be like anywhere posting from his phone, but he's threatening everybody again. I'm going to be leaving soon. I would suggest everyone else, well, you've got balls of steel, so you'll probably stay here. Would you help me spread the word?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, this is worse than last year. So we're gonna have to change everything. Do you remember were you in the loop? Hey, Sandy. Were you in the loop last Christmas when that nut threatened us? And
Yes,
How are you?
heard about that.
he's just starting again. He's out of the hospital, and I didn't know he had an account at my discussion forum. So he started posting like 15 minutes ago about what he's gonna do to everybody here.
Great.
And he's been sending me private messages, and he's been sending other people private messages. I don't know what he looks like. I know his name. I'm not gonna hang around.
So
He could be posting from he could be on his phone in one of these cars. So yeah, we were gonna do some stuff here, and we're not gonna now, but we can go eat, right?
If that's his plan, is to screw this up.
Black that just showed up and nobody knows who he is. And he's acting a little sketchy.
Well, Sandy said she's seen that guy.
She just told me she thought that was him.
Oh, then that's not good.
But I think Tommy...
Yeah, you just stay over here. This is exactly to the minute, 50 years after Zodiac killed Paul Stein, his last known victim. And it was where that white van is. That's where Mr. Stein parked his cab. And exactly to the minute, 50 years ago, Zodiac was last seen. Oh, this is the nut.
Right, how Zodiac and Manson was. I'm not getting into the whole film mistake.
The lunatic threatened to come here tonight and do damage. So he's here. I guess he's not a fan of mine. So I did bring mace. Angie originally got me a pink one, but I said, no, black is more foreboding. I don't think mace works on people like that, though. Can you hear him ranting? He believes his father is the Zodiac, and he believes that we're protecting his father from being prosecuted. And we're protecting him because we're all in a satanic pedophile ring. The Zodiac encountered Paul Stein at the intersection of Mason and Geary, downtown San Francisco, and had Mr. Stein drive to the intersection of Washington and Maple, which was a block further east from where the actual crime occurred. Apparently, Zodiac felt that that location wasn't an appropriate place to kill someone. Maybe there were witnesses, I don't know. So the actual crime occurred right here at the intersection of Washington and Cherry, where that white van is facing us, parked right there. That's where the cab parked for the final time. And there were some witnesses up in that window who did see what happened, and they eventually described the Zodiac to the police, and that's where the famous sketch came from. Zodiac was last seen heading north on Cherry. Never seen again. I think we're gonna walk that, I hope.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. Can you guys take the car? anywhere but here. That's the lunatic. So, God, what do people not understand about this lunatic threatening to kill everybody? Jesus. Oh, but maybe he won't kill everyone. That's true.
Maybe it's a different lunatic.
But what's the worst case scenario? He will kill everyone. Do you really want to gamble with that? We're going to head north on Cherry and then take a right on Jackson because that was Zodiac's last known, well, that's where he was last seen, and that was exactly 50 years ago to the minute. And he was last seen headed this way. Did you see a stocky guy with a crew cut go by? With black rim glasses and carrying a piece of shirt? No? Okay, good. Yeah, anyway, the sheriff's department just went by a little late, but Melvin Belli used to live right there. So Zodiac was last seen headed north on Cherry, last seen right about here, I guess, and that's where Melvin Belli used to live, famous attorney. And Zodiac wrote him a letter about 2 months after the last known attack 50 years ago tonight. So ironically, where the Zodiac was last seen headed was in the general direction of Melvin Belli's house, which is, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it happened. Lots of coincidences with this case. So these mansions get remodeled every 5 years, even though they're perfect. So this is where the two officers heading west on Jackson encountered someone who could have been the Zodiac, and they saw him briefly. Zodiac claimed that they had a discussion. The officers denied it, but that encounter, if it happened right in this area. So the cops would have slowed down to talk to him, like right where this car is.
He turned, head down, walked up the stairs towards the front door. They rolled by. So they have no idea if he ran back out.
Yeah.
I mean, the cops saw me back when I was a kid running from something. Oh, I pretended I lived there.
Yeah.
So,
based on where the encounter happened with Falcons Elms, the officers that Zodiac claimed he spoke to, and based on the coordinates that he put in his letter, how many minutes it took him to get to the park and all that stuff, this is where I think he turned north and headed down into the Presidio and escaped. I think he had a car parked like right down here. There's a bunch of places you could illegally park a car back then. So I'll be the Zodiac. From anybody passing by on the street, if you went north on Spruce here, you'd be out of sight from really fast because of the angle, the descent. But based on where he encountered the cops, allegedly, and based on what he wrote in the letter, as far as how long it took him to get to the park and all that stuff, I think he went north on Spruce and then hit right here, behind the wall, the Presidio. What do you think?
That makes total sense.
And then, so now he's in the Presidio, could have had a getaway car right here, or even down this alley on the other side of the wall. Plenty of places to park. And then
It's dark now, but imagine what it'd be like 50 years ago.
yeah, dark. And then if you go to the top of the hill, you could park and witness everything that was happening here, the cops on their motorcycles and everything he put in his letter detailing what was going on, the search and all that. So this is my best bet as to how he escaped. And it would have only taken a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. Or he could have run into the woods, but that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how quickly would you break your leg if you ran into the Presidio at night? I probably wouldn't take too long. So 50 years ago, like almost exactly, Zodiac was last seen, I believe, headed west here, or north on Spruce, down the hill into the park, where he was never seen again. And that's the Zodiac myth and mystery of where did he go?